Good morning again, and thank you all for being here at our closing keynote presentation. We are so pleased to have the panelists that we do, and we could not have our closing keynote session without our presenting sponsor. And if I could have everybody's attention, I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. So this morning's keynote presenting sponsor is McDonald Miller Facility Solutions. And on behalf of the LOC and its 241 members, I want to thank McDonald Miller Facility Solutions for their generous support in helping us put on this presentation. And I'd like to welcome to the stage Mr. Andy Kaplowitz, the Public Sector Account Executive for McDonald Miller.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having us. McDonald Miller Facility Solutions is excited to sponsor the League of Oregon Cities closing keynote panel. Admittedly, we're a little less excited about missing the annular eclipse, but nevertheless, we're here. It was cloudy from what I heard. It was not as big a deal as we would have liked. But a little bit about McDonald Miller, for those of you who aren't familiar with us. We don't build airplanes and we don't serve billions and billions. We're a full-service design, engineer, build, mechanical contractor. We're a Washington and Oregon only company. We serve our customers with new construction, preventative maintenance and services programs, as well as energy services, including, germane to the last conversation, helping with supportive housing in King County in Seattle area. We're working to help the county to address the needs by converting hotels into supportive housing with multi-service programs layered in. So we're well familiar with that. If that's something that your community is concerned with, please let us know. Basically, what do? We help buildings work better. And since 2019, we've been working with Washington cities on compliance with the clean building standard that was established there. So as you are well familiar, I would assume, Oregon's climate resilience package passed this year and was modeled largely after Washington's law. That means that McDonald Miller can help cities and their commercial building owner constituents through the full compliance process easily, efficiently, and cost effectively. So back to this morning's solar eclipse. You know, you need all three celestial objects to create the phenomenon, right? You need the sun, you need the moon to block the sun, and in order to see it, you need to be in the right place at the right time. I'm a former lobbyist, and my three favorite sports are baseball, hockey, and the American political process. And as a former lobbyist, I see the eclipse as analogous to the policymaking in politics. I believe effective policy is based on empirical, verifiable, and scientific data. That's the sun. I see that that's tempered by input from subject matter experts, whether that's staff or outside experts. And third, that would be the moon, including input from constituents, of course. And finally, tempered by one's obligation to represent the will of your entire district. That's the right place, the right time. It's largely understood that local politics are a lot less partisan than state and federal politics. And I've always believed that a move to the middle gets the best results. Districts drawn in a more balanced manner facilitate rigorous debate, encourage candidates to reach across the aisle to create well-forged policy and support, and it's good for political health. I think there's nobody in this room who understands that better than Congresswoman Chavez de Reymer, who had a hard-fought victory with a narrow margin in a highly balanced 5th Congressional District. She's also a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus and the Conservative Climate Caucus, which helps to educate House Republicans on climate action that's consistent with conservative values. So politics at a national level feels the least bipartisan than it has at almost any time in our history. Yet the people are looking for bipartisanship. And how do we know this? We know this because the US House and the Senate are nearly evenly split, but highly partisan bodies. But next year's presidential election will likely come down to the independent voter. So it's not enough to have an even composition in the bodies where action is taken. Policymakers must act in a bipartisan manner. We see that in a recent study from Gallup in September. This shows that Congress's approval ratings for how they're doing in handling their job is at 17%. The low was about 10 years ago at 13%. Not so good. 82% of those who were surveyed felt that they weren't doing as good a job. On the local level, however, the Pew Research Center shows that 56% of local political leaders are doing a good job versus 26% where they felt that it wasn't the case. So you can see clearly at the local level where things are less partisan, where people do move to the middle, the general sense of satisfaction with how government works is more to your favor than things at the national level or even at the state. So let's get back to subject matter experts. We are one of those subject matter experts. We helped to shape the legislation in Washington. We're involved in helping to shape the rulemaking in Oregon because we have so much experience in implementing what's been passed, and we believe that we are one of those people in the right place at the right time to help you. We've done over 1,600 building benchmarks on commercial buildings in Washington state. We have a Clean Buildings Incentive Program that the city of Bellevue, Washington selected McDonald Miller as their consultant. We've also put in place a program with the city of Issaquah and with the Washington Hospitality Association, where we reach over 6,000 of their hotel and restaurant and other service providing businesses to help them to wrestle with the law and find their path to compliance. But in the Bellevue Clean Buildings Program, we've benchmarked over 200 buildings representing roughly 24 million square feet of commercial space. We're helping the city to sequester over 3,300 metric tons of CO2, which is equivalent to planting 155,000 trees in the city or taking 380,000 gallons of gas per year out of the pump or back in the pump. They're basically, for every dollar investing, they're sequestering 5.25 metric tons of CO2, and they're getting a return of $375 for every dollar invested in the program. We've also identified almost $5 million in incentives for commercial building owners. So whether you're motivated to take climate action or driven by driving operating costs down for your city, for your building owners, for your constituents, we believe it makes sense to work with McDonald Miller. So medium to large cities, let's talk about a Clean Buildings Incentive Program and help you get ahead of the curve as the rulemaking finishes next year. And for smaller cities, know that even if your buildings, whether they're city-owned or your commercial buildings, are not subject to this, if you're motivated to help to reduce your carbon footprint or help your constituents to drive their bottom line and make improvements, these results translate to smaller buildings as well. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. Let us help you, your constituents, and your community, and I'll hand it back over to President Callaway. Thanks for your time.
And all I have to add to that is nothing can eclipse the importance of our sponsors. Thank you. Okay, the boos are out of your system for you guys, okay? You're welcome. So for the remainder of our time today, we'll be hearing from three panelists who hold a perspective that should help all of us. You may have noticed, but this year's annual conference included several sessions that have included tips for advocacy at the state and federal level. And it remains an important part of LOC's grassroots effort for all of us to be active with our respective state and federal leaders. There's also something common with each of our panelists and us. It's very simple, because before taking on higher office, each had their start at the local level as mayors and city council members. So on stage with me today is Congresswoman Lori Chavez de Raymer. She is serving her first term in House District 5. She previously served in local government, specifically as the mayor of Happy Valley from 2011 to 2019. You'll get a chance, okay, Council President Amami, just hold on. And she was also on the Happy Valley City Council from 2004 through 2010. So along with Council President David Amami, can we please welcome Congresswoman. And a couple of things I'll add. First of all, last night, Happy Valley received one of the LOC awards, and you were acknowledged in that for your work with YAC. So thank you. Your legacy lives on. Secondly, we were not sure if we were going to have the Congresswoman with us. It wasn't until about 5 o'clock last night that things closed down, and she was able to make the 6:55 flight from Washington, D.C. back here to Oregon. And if you are familiar with Washington, D.C. traffic on a Friday at 5 o'clock, getting from there to DCA and on the plane in less than 2 hours is remarkable. So thank you. We have said you can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up, and thank you for showing up. And next we have Senator Dick Anderson, who represents Oregon Senate District 5, which includes Lincoln City to the north, Coos Bay, Charleston, North Bend to the south. Senator Anderson was formerly the mayor of Lincoln City, and he served on the city council in Lincoln City as well. Thank you, Senator. And State Representative John Lively. Representative Lively has served House District 7 since 2013, and his public service started in the city of Springfield. We have some Springfield people, let's clap. Okay. As a city councilor in 1977, and later as the mayor of Springfield, a position that he held until 1986. So thank you, Representative Lively. Thank you all. So the format today is going to be some opening comments from each of our panel members, and then we'll have them taking some questions from me, and then as time allows, we will open things up for you to allow them questions as well. So for the opening segment, we'd like you each to respond to this question: what practical advice can you offer city officials to work effectively with state and federal legislators? And we will start with Congresswoman DeRaymer.
Well, thank you. I am so grateful to be here. So despite the thank you from you about getting on that plane, I want you all to know I knew what I was getting into when I signed up to do this job, and when you elected me to do this job. I do it every week. That is my goal. So don't feel bad. This is common practice. I just wasn't sure if I could get out, but when they told me I could, I got right on that plane to get home, because as most of you know, and those of you who don't know me, my heart is in local politics. This is where, I really spent 23 years on the ground of Happy Valley, making sure that I was doing exactly what you all are doing for your communities, working with local electeds, city, state, county, school boards, business owners, chambers, knowing what was important to them. So this was important to me, and when Mayor Drotzman had asked me several months ago to be on this panel, I committed, knowing full well that my schedule might get in the way, but I knew that if there was a break in it, I wasn't going to miss this opportunity. Of all the other opportunities that we get to come home, this is one that I knew would be important to you all, because I remember when I sat there, I wanted to hear what was happening at the federal level, and not often did they show up to tell us what was happening. So the key thing that I will tell you, the number one thing is communication. Don't be afraid to call. Most people have my cell phone. People text me all the time and ask me questions very specific to their communities. I answer the phone, I pick up, and if it's not me, it's my team. I have a team of 15, whether they're here in Oregon or in DC, to do just that. So communication is key, Steve, as you know. I cannot fix a problem unless I know about the problem. I cannot cheer you on unless I know what you want me to cheer you on for. And at the end of it, I cannot get you any federal dollars unless I know you need those dollars and what they're for. And that's my number one goal. So that's the number one thing that I would say for all of you. Reach out, never be afraid, and it doesn't matter what party we serve. We're here to serve you at the local level always, because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters.
Thank you.
Thank you. What I'd like to do as being introduced, usually I introduce and acknowledge that I'm the senator from the coast. But with redistricting, I think it's apropos I did pick up part of Benton County and the city of Philomath, and I know Philomath is out there, and Lane County into almost Fern Ridge. So I haven't figured out what to call myself on the Senate floor, but I'm going to still continue for the push of the coast. So thank you, and it's always a pleasure to get in front of a crowd of fellow electeds, especially local government. I too have a lot of respect for you in the audience, and have viewed my time, which was actually 12 years in local government, and I did it because I was curious. Fortunately, I had retired early, and needed something to do, so I was just plain curious about how those cities worked, more in the numbers, the budget aspect, and that's how I entered into the process of local government. So 12 years later, 6 of those as mayor of Lincoln City, I got mad at the folks in Salem who seem to keep stepping on our toes as local government, and now I am one. So I apologize for that, but trying to make a difference. You know, in my short tenure so far, I've noticed a lot of things of how people ask and look for and try to solve issues. Some advice I would have, certainly call on all electeds, not just your in the specific jurisdiction. But when you call on me, for example, I'm interested first and foremost about my district. And so I like to have actual information about the district. If you've got partners, working, let me know so I can, make sure we're really having a positive impact on the district first and then to the state of Oregon. And I say that since, in my opinion, and we may get that a little later, the coast has been forgotten. I ran on that, and you can't imagine how many nods I got in agreement. I never had to, everybody's got a reason. When we talk about the urban-rural divide, you're standing looking east to rural, and the urban is the I-5 corridor, and the coast gets forgotten. So I'm interested in the coast and now slipping into, the valley. So, come to me with solutions, not just your issue, but make some suggestions as to, how you would see the problem being solved. And if there's a piece of legislation that you're really lobbying on or against, for or against, what is it? Is it the big concept you don't like, or is it some particular, wording? Words are important in legislation, I've found. So share that with me so that I don't have to go hunting around. The other, finally, is a relationship. I have a tough time with just a one call out of the blue or a one visit. I'm in your district. Keep working with me on a regular basis. Invite me to your affairs. As described, my district, it's roughly 3.5-hour drive from where I am to the southern tip of my district. 7:30 at night meetings aren't really exciting for me because I like to sleep in my own bed, and that's a long drive back. So I would ask you to think about how we approach each other and look for those opportunities of getting together. So I welcome the outreach, encourage you, and come often. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Yes, I'm one of those that's been in Salem long enough. You can accuse me at times of stepping on your toes or getting in your way. That's not my goal, and I can tell you in my caucus, I get criticized sometimes for speaking up too often in support of local governments, but I believe strongly in the roles of local government and the state to support them. But there's always balances that have to be reached in the end of the day of getting legislation done. So what I'm going to do, I have just some points, bullet points, things I'm going to go talk about. And remember, this is coming from one legislature. Every one of us is different. Every one of us represents a different district. But from my standpoint, when I'm dealing with people on issues, these are important things to me. So first, style. Every legislature has a different style, and you need to recognize that when you go in to talk to them, or whether you're going to call them or otherwise, because the way they do business is a little bit different. My style is to meet everybody, even those that I disagree with. They're allowed in my office, and we can have time to talk. So that's my style. Not everybody agrees, and remember, when we're in session, that's hard to do because of the time allowed, but my style is to be very open and talk with people. Know some of the prior history of that particular elected official. So I did serve on city council and serve as mayor then, and then I was very actively involved in my community after that. But knowing that is important, specifically to know how far you might have to go to have them understand what the issue is. I prefer that people provide an overview of the actual, what they're going to bring to the meeting. And so everybody, again, has a different style. So I like to receive a very simple written explanation of what the issues we're going to talk about, so I can get questions ready, so you're there, so we can both spend the time most fully when you're in my office to address those things. Respect the limited time we have, especially when we're in session. In many cases, you'll be lucky to get 15 minutes in a person's office, and that's 15 minutes. At 15 minutes, our staff or somebody's in there saying, you need to move on to the next person. So plan your presentations and your discussions around that. Depending on the issues, be aware of the different abilities between long and short sessions. So this is something often that people come in office. It's very different in a long session, the time we have in which to address issues, and specifically budget issues, because the budgets are primarily done in the long session. So if your issue has to do with budget asks and that, the long session is when you need to bring that forward and we need to have that conversation versus the short. But just be aware of the differences and the abilities that we have to take actions during those times, whatever issue may be. This is one that not everybody's comfortable with, but I like you to be able to discuss the pros and the cons of the issue you're bringing in, because in many cases, you hear the other side of those issues before you bring them forward. And so I appreciate the persons that are advocating for it to talk about both of those. It helps me, again, get a better sense of what the issues that who else might bring to me that may argue against that. No surprises. So I think you know that in local government, that's certainly the same in my office. I'm fortunate, my district is Springfield. So I don't have multiple communities or this big area, it's Springfield. And I know the elected officials at all levels in Springfield work for them, and we work very hard not to surprise each other. So they let me know of issues that are developing that may come up. I let them know of issues that we're doing in the state that may impact their ability to do it, but try to keep each side informed of what those are, but no surprises. You can ask in the meeting for a commitment. Many people talk about closing the deal if you're in here. Well, you're going to vote for it or not. Again, depends on whether it's a short or long session, but secondly, there's a lot of other issues, so where it's at in that. So it's not just as simple as saying, I could often say, I agree with what you're saying, but we may not be able to get there for other reasons. So you can ask for the commitment, but respect the fact that you may not get one in that particular meeting. I prefer in-person meetings, or now we have Zoom and Teams. That's just my style. I'm old. I'm just used to meeting with people face to face, and I still like to do that. Many people that know me, I have the same staff I started with in my first campaign. So Andrew's been with me from the beginning. He manages my calendar. He makes sure I get to meet with people in that. So utilize, again, know who that staff member is and utilize those people in order to get access. But the more we can meet in person and or through video conferencing, the better it is from my particular standpoint. And the last, I will two more things. Follow up, follow up, follow up. The fact that you came in my office and met at a specific time doesn't mean in 2 weeks things haven't changed, and you might have to remind me or remind my staff of what we talked about and where things are at before we get to it in the session. And the final thing I would just say, be respectful. We don't have to agree, but we need to respect each other and the different opinions in that and find that common ground. And so for me, that's one of the key things that I work on when I'm in the legislature. Again, thank you very much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you. And those are all great suggestions. They're also very doable. So I appreciate the practicality of what you've mentioned. Our second question is something that's on our minds for many of us, and that has to do with the ever-increasing polarization of issues at the local, state, and federal level. So do you have any recommendations for us on how to dial it down and continue working together to solve the important issues of today? And we will start. Sure, Congresswoman, if you'd like, or Representative? Okay.
So
It's going to be the most fun, so you go first.
So a couple things. First, I was born and raised in Northeastern Oregon, and I can still consider myself Wallowa being my primary home. I go back up there every year. It's very important to me. So first, I come from a perspective of believing there doesn't have to be this split. Even when I go back up there, many of my friends, we're not in the same political party, but we respect each other. We grew up together, and we have to do it. So here's my big thing I tell them and others. So if we have things we're disagreeing on, we are disagreeing on it, then come with suggestions of things we can do. We do too much in this state of one model fits all. One model doesn't fit all, but come to me, and I really told my friends from Northeast and Northeast, so bring me things we could do differently there than we're doing in the rest of the state so we can find a path forward to do it. We can end up in the same place, but we got to find a path to do it. And if we don't have some suggestions, so here's the key thing that is bothering us here at this particular issue. Let's talk about that and see what we can do to change the way that we direct it from the state. But most importantly from my standpoint, so let's talk about what those key issues are that are causing us the most problems and see if we can find grounds in which to address them.
Thank you.
Here's a fun fact. Representative Lively and I came from the same spot, Wallowa County. Of course, I'm retired. I'm a little smarter. I moved all the way west to the coast and retired. He got stuck in Springfield. So, anyway, good question. I think to some degree, I would have to make the observation that we're inundated with national news. And so I only say that because every time I'm in front of a constituent or door knocking or anything else, the first thing they want to talk about is federal issues and the things that aren't working or all the noise from the feds. And then once I get them off that, they immediately move to local issues and they bypass the state. So I have to work hard to get to the state issue and what I'm trying to talk about or get from them. I say that only because don't be fooled. Things aren't perfect in Salem by any means. They're human. We're all human. There's 90 of us. But one of the things I can only speak to my own, what I'm doing, and one of them is my time in the legislature has been a little strange. I've had COVID, so we were shut down. Not shut down, but certainly the building itself was limited. Then we have construction going on, and again, limited to access. One of the things that I have not been able to enjoy is lunchrooms, lounges, where I'm told the more normal aspect of legislation occurs, which is people take off their ties or the sports coats, loosen the neck collars, and talk on a personal basis, drop the titles, and share and get to know each other. I've not had that opportunity. Instead, what I've taken the approach is, like Representative Lively, there isn't a person, a lobbyist, or anybody that my office and I won't see. It's, again, scheduling, but I've said yes to everybody, so I invite everyone in. And that starts getting around that I'm a good listener. I'm willing to listen to the issues. And as a result, with members, we like bipartisan. You may have noticed that. Bipartisan in the state legislature means all you need is, in this case, one Republican, and it makes it bipartisan because there's so few of us. And somehow I got tapped for that, and so I'm on a lot of subcommittees, workforces, gathering groups, and I get asked, quite frankly, what do you do in the off-season, non-session? I was counting up, I'm on 20 different little groups of with members dealing with issues. And what I've found, being of the minority party, this is my time because I'm respected by the majority party. They will listen to me. They don't listen to my floor speeches, as eloquent as they are, because the decisions have, quite frankly, already been made. But if I can get into the room early on, and now is the time before short session, before long session, and we can talk. And quite frankly, I found the people very receptive to the ideas, and I like to think I've been able to soften some of the damage that I would perceive coming through. So it's a technique. It works well for me, much like Representative Lively. I like person-to-person contacts, and so I'm traveling all over to have that face-to-face meetings. So act like adults and act human.
Thank you.
Humans. Well, listen, you brought it up on the federal level. Often, I don't watch the news at the federal level because it's chaos, and it's meant to be that way. It's meant to further divide. Again, for the longest time, when I first moved to Happy Valley in 2000, I was raising 2 young girls, 6-year-old twins. My husband was starting a business, and all I wanted to do was be involved in what my community was going to look like. And I started off in parks, and then city council, and then mayor. And that was where my love was. It wasn't until I ran for state rep in 2016 before anybody knew I was even a Republican. Nobody asked the question because I was doing the work that the people were asking me to do. And as I moved through that process, you do get put into subgroups. People want to make judgments then on your party label. And oftentimes you hear groups of no labels or problem solvers, but at the end of the day, they still know which party you belong to. So listen, I try to just not buy into the nonsense. When I look at a fellow Democrat, listen, here's the reality. I was a Democrat most of my young life. My father was a Teamster. We were hardworking middle Americans who were just trying to do the right thing for our families and our communities, and that's how I raised my family. Hard work, integrity, honesty, and really staying focused on what others either needed or wanted or where we could build coalitions. I don't run my office at the federal level any different than I run my family, than any different than I run, I run my family, that's a true statement. That's funny. Anyway, or as I was mayor, and I wanted to build those coalitions, and being elected to Congress as the first Republican woman ever elected to the state of Oregon surprises me. For as diverse as this state is, that we would not spend the time thinking about what was best for the state of Oregon in electing somebody who was not of the one-party system, that would bring balance and conversation to the table. Because in our communities, we are divided. If you go ask people what their party is, but I was mentioning to a couple of people here at the end of the day, and I was talking to Mayor Wheeler, who I've known for years as well, who's clearly not in my party, who I have deep disagreements with, and same with the governor. But it is my job and responsibility to have those conversations on your behalf. You lent me your voice for 2 years to go back and be that voice for you. And listen, I don't come to you and say, I expect you to solve, because when you come to my office at the federal level, that's because you felt like there's nowhere else to go. Oftentimes you will go to your local parties, you will go to your state parties, you'll go to your state legislature, and you're looking for help. And it is my job to be that conduit, to find you the help, or at least be honest with you and let you know that maybe help is not on the way at this moment, but I'm not gonna give up, and I'm not gonna not open that door. So at the federal level, I'm one of 435 members of Congress, or you have the U.S. House of Representatives. You know we have a very slim majority of 4, and that makes divided government that much more fun. In a room, oftentimes, where we just have Republicans in our conference, and you can see the divide there. There's no secret that what happened a few weeks ago when we first in January, where we elected our speaker after 15 rounds. A lot of people couldn't turn off the TV with that one. That was the first time that my family said, I watch C-SPAN all day long. And I think, why are you watching C-SPAN now? Well, we're looking for you. And then you realize how much you can get caught up into the nonsense. But we elected our speaker. Kevin McCarthy was not liked by many, but I can tell you this. The one thing that I spoke out about and was public about was that when he did not help me in my primary win the race here. He was not involved in my primary when I won a 5-way primary here amongst my fellow Republicans. But once I was in that general election, I now knew who he was, and he was going to expand that tent to open up where, as a freshman Republican, I was going to have a voice on behalf of Oregon. Oregon had not really been represented from maybe the more conservative view, but I knew what I was getting into. There was going to be now 2 Republicans and 4 Democrats, and this is the first time in the Portland metro area I could be that counter voice and have real conversation. I do work with Congresswoman Salinas. I do work with Congresswoman Hoyle. I see Congressman Blumenauer on the plane every week, and I've known him for years before that, because I would go back and lobby on behalf of Happy Valley. Happy Valley, Happy Valley, Happy Valley was where my focus was at the time, and it didn't matter that he was. And Congressman Schrader and I are still good friends. Yes, his seat is the seat I sit in, and he lost in his primary. We work together now. I talk to him once a month. He's back there lobbying, and I take from him what he offered the constituents of the 5th District of what was good and what maybe we didn't agree on. I try to offer what I think is best for the office now. So from Portland Metro all the way over to Central Oregon and Bend, there's a very big difference in that divide that was mentioned earlier. But I can tell you this, I don't take this job for granted. I build coalitions as I'm there amongst my Democrats and Republicans. I find out who my adversaries are because they make it very apparent if they don't want to work with me. But we are in the majority, despite we're not acting like it now. And it's frustrating. Nobody's more frustrated than I. I will do a news show every single week here to let people know that I didn't get elected to go back and do the gridlock. I got elected because people expect me to move the ball down the field. People expect me to govern like I did with Happy Valley, like I do with my family, like I do with business, that they want to see movement. They don't want to see the gridlock. So on last night, when they decided to adjourn again for the weekend, I wasn't going to let that hamstring me and not show up here to not face the music of what fools sometimes we can look like. I will be the first to say, this isn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I expected. I'm gonna do everything I damn well can to get with those problem solvers, to get with maybe some more of the moderate Republicans and say, how do we work our way through this? Because the number one question people want us to do is elect a Speaker of the House so that we can deal with what's happening in Israel. We can deal with what's happening with gas prices at 6%. We can deal with the fentanyl crisis that you all are dealing with on your streets, that we can deal with the $33 trillion in debt. That's what you all elected me to do. That's what Oregon's 5th District elected me to do. And I don't care what district you live in. You want to talk to me because you're not talking to your person? Call my office. I will work with anybody and everybody, Democrat, Republican, independent, not affiliated. If it's important to you, it's important to me. I'm not going to give up on Oregon. I want to work with my fellow state partners, my local leaders, because we deserve that as Oregonians to say, enough is enough. Let's get back to governing, and let's do what's best for the American people. And that's what I'm doing every single day.
Thank you. So, one last softball question, okay? Before we turn it, yeah, those weren't the softball, you'll be glad to know. So one last question for you before we go to the audience. And some of us here have been in office maybe for a year or a little bit longer. You have all been in office in capacity for some time at different levels. So what has been your biggest surprise that you face as an elected official? And that could be a pleasant surprise or maybe a not so pleasant surprise. And may we start, Senator Anderson, with you, if that's okay.
Sure, thank you. The biggest surprise, I think for me, I got to tell you from observation, the jobs you do at the local government is much harder than what I do at state. And the piece of it is you deal with the consumer, the constituents every single day. And I've found it amazing as mayor of Lincoln City during my time. There was no place, absolutely, as you know, no place you could go that people not only knew you, but they had an opinion, and they shared it. I find it interesting now. I live in the same house, same place, same city. I go to the same places. They know me, but I don't have the issues. It's amazing that, again, as I commented, they either want to talk federal issues or local issues, and now I can pass those on to Mayor Walke as having the bad guy. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, recognizing and respecting what goes on in local government, and would encourage those who want to go to higher office, and you in this room, that it's good training. Dealing with the consumer, I guess I look at the House representatives, a lot of new people, a lot of young people, a lot of people who don't have experience of being elected, and I'm just appalled at how they, in my opinion, overreact to one email or one criticism or one perceived problem. And as I've been told, the House of Representatives is more like, the bar, barroom brawl. We in the Senate are much more distinguished, and we think of it as a whiskey library, a little more thought-provoking and that kind of stuff. So, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Senator, for that. So here's the thing that surprised me most, and I've testified a lot before the legislature before I ever served in it, and usually was frustrated for a couple things as an outside person testifying. First, in many cases, the few legislators that would sit there at hearings and listen and not get up and wander around or be on their computers, that always frustrated me. And the time, but here's my biggest frustration to being there is the limited time we have in hearings specifically. So if we give people 3 minutes each to speak, and we have 22 people speak, and say in a short session, that may be the only hearing we have on the issue. And so for me, it's very difficult. I'm a person that has to think through the policies and ask the questions and that, so it's very hard for me to think that was adequate time, both for the discussions with the constituents, and then for me as a member to consider something or say, well, that's it, we had our hearing, make a decision, it's moving on, it's going to end up on the floor. So for me, that's the biggest thing, and I appreciate why it's that way, given the numbers of issues we have and the limited days we have in which to meet. But still, I don't think that's necessarily in your best interest or all our constituents' best interest to how the time that we can spend to talk and dialogue about those issues before we have to vote on them.
Thank you.
Well, I have been surprised by a lot of things. I haven't been shocked by anything, but I have been surprised. The biggest surprise is they are 16, 18-hour days. So that was a surprise. We go early, 7 a.m. till 10, 11 p.m., most every single day. I walk about 15,000 steps a day. That's a good thing. Yeah. We are severely over-catered in every meeting, which is ridiculous of how much food is around. So all those are little surprises. My best surprise is that there are a lot of little happy valleys, a lot of little small towns. There are members of Congress who I have now 43 Republican freshmen in my class, 74 freshmen overall. They're all doing their best work for their communities and what they believe in. That is a pleasant surprise that it's not out just for me or them or individually. They are really working hard because what matters to their constituents on the ground. We all represent about 770,000 people. Oftentimes we'll get the squeaky wheel. I would say, please call up and call often. And I have the good conversation, but we represent 769 other thousand people that maybe we don't hear from as often, but I have to weigh in on that. I sit on 3 different committees, agriculture, I sit on transportation and infrastructure and education and workforce, and within those committees I have 8 subcommittees that we work through, and probably about 20 different caucuses, Main Street Caucus, which is more moderate Republicans who are trying to just get things done on Main Street. I sit with the problem solvers, which is equal Democrats and Republicans, to talk about how we can really solve the problems of the day, as well as many others. So there are a lot of different groups. Now, what I will say, and you all can see this with your own eyes, is don't believe always what comes out of people's mouths. Believe it with your own eyes. Please research what you're seeing and really get the facts. I challenge you to do that, because you'll probably find something a little different than maybe what somebody had told you, or maybe what you heard third party. And the political side of it it's heated up. It's getting started amongst probably a lot of our different communities. Again, what you see on TV is not always what you will meet in the person, but I can tell you this, I love this job. I feel very honored to serve my country in this way. I feel very honored that I have 4 Navy SEALs in my freshman class who are here to serve their country and have seen probably on the battlefield maybe what we're seeing on TV today with Israel and how prolific that is in their hearts and in their minds. And I want to recognize that this morning I got a text from my colleague in Indiana asking me if I could see the eclipse. So it is funny that I was driving here. She says, "Oh my God, did you get to go home and see that eclipse? Because my daughter is asking. She knows that you're from there, and I'm hoping to see that soon." You build family, you build relationships with a lot of your colleagues there, and I try to travel to those states and see what they care about and bring people to my state. There's a program where Democrats and Republicans switch, where I will go to a Democratic state with one of my freshman colleagues and see what matters to their community, and then they'll come see mine and understand me a little bit better so that we can have good policy. I know the representative mentioned he was a policy guy. I love policy too, but I'm a people person. If many of you might probably already guess that. I'm a people person. I like to find out exactly what the policy is being asked about and then go find out who can I move toward the good policy, who can I get out of the way, who are my barriers, and go talk to those people. I really, really like to spend my day getting to know the person that I'm dealing with on a intimate basis so that I know will we continue to work together, because then when the politics comes up, when the nonsense comes up, the relationship is built that was mentioned earlier, that we can get the best things done for you individually. So there's lots of pleasant surprises. The shocking, there are a handful of people who don't think like that at all, and they're willing to be bomb throwers at every turn, to be on social media and be on TV. And you know who those people are if you do watch TV. They're out there, and it's on both sides, and it really is disingenuous, and it really taints what we're all trying to do on the level that we work so hard to do it in.
Thank you. So as we turn to the audience for your questions, you know, Representative Lively, you said one of the most important things we can do is respect the limited time. So I'm going to ask our audience to do just that. When we ask questions, please ask your question. You don't need to preface it necessarily with a long story or a long introduction, but just please ask your question. Also remember that our focus today is, you know, how can we best work with with our state and federal leaders. So if it's off of that subject, then you've got access to them easily, and we would ask that you would hold that question, you know, for a bit later. So with that, we have some folks with microphones, and I see one hand in the very back of the room. I see 2 hands in the back of the room, and so we'll start with those 2. Oh, and then we have one up here. So this is like an auction. Cool. All right. Thank you for the questions.
This is Peter Hall, counselor from Haines, Oregon. I'm also a Democrat in Eastern Oregon, so what I have to do is, if I want, in terms of policy proposals, I have to talk to somebody over in the Willamette Valley, because somebody on the east side probably not going to go along with the policy proposals. So I want to see if the Congresswoman and Senator and Representative, if you listen to everybody in the state, are you open to listening, not just to people in your district, that the people, say, through the Congresswoman, people across the country, and to the Senator and Representative, people across the state, are you willing to listen to everybody in the state? Because some people, their district, they may feel that their representative isn't going to listen to them, but maybe they feel you will. So are you open to listening to everybody across the state or across the country?
For sure. And as far as Eastern Oregon, Central Oregon, right here on the west side, you know, as our offices, I have an office in Redmond, Oregon. I have an office in Oregon City, as well as DC, and we do mobile office hours in a lot of our communities. But that's exactly what I was mentioning earlier. I don't care if you're from my district. If you have an issue that you think I can help you with, because I sit on Ag Committee with Congresswoman Salinas, who's a Democrat. We sit on that committee together, so we're hearing what's important to the farm bills coming up and reauthorization of that. But if your congresswoman is Val Hoyle and she's not on ag and you have an issue with that, then you might want to come talk to my office. So it might be subject-based, it might be personality-based, it might be you just can't get a hold of them based their calendar. Please come see us. That is, I have an open door policy, and it might be as specific as, personal issues. Whether you're having, we all have, well, you guys do casework, maybe, I don't know, at the state level. We do casework at the federal level. That's a big part of our offices, where people are having issues with Social Security, people are having issues with their veterans benefits, people are having issues with their passports. They need to talk to somebody because somebody else can't get the job done from the federal agency that we're dealing with. And that's a whole nother can of worms, dealing with the federal agencies. So, but we have direct access to those people. So yes, my office is open. I do not care at what part of the spectrum of party you are on. If I can help you, I want to help you.
The same goes true, actually, with on the state level, except for those passports and issues. We fire those off to the feds, postal issues, just all this stuff. And it may surprise you, but I'm glad, Representative, that we finally in Oregon passed the civics class, so that people who email us, state and locals, federal issues, they'll just go direct to the Fed from here on. But certainly to the point is, we get all sorts of phone calls, emails, all subjects. I think in honesty, I do pay more attention to those that I know and come from my district. Then secondly, it is subject matter, because I like to make sure that the real experts in the room, get the question, get the concern. It may not be a topic that I've worked much on, but I'll certainly listen and try to bring in or connect the individual with someone who has a lot more information than I do. But I would not let it stop you from calling me or calling a representative or senator that you think might have better access to an answer and information.
I'll just quickly say that what I said earlier about being open to all conversations, and I am. I work very closely with Senator Finley, Representative Owens, Representative Smith, from those that cover that part of the state. Again, not just I'm interested, but listen to them and their constituents, and especially when we're dealing with issues. And I probably, in the legislature, do more co-sponsoring of legislation with people in the Republican Party, just because I think it's important to hear what their issues are and try to get the majority to listen to what those issues are and get a reasonable conversation.
Thank you. In the back.
Hi, Susan Traxel, City of Siletz. My question kind of revolves around this discussion of the extremes that you keep talking about and the two-party system. I know it's sometimes naive to ask this, but I feel like I have to. And I'm an optimist, thinking, is there a way out of this? I hear talking across the aisle, what if the aisle is the new space to be? And do you think there's any possibility of organization for a more collaborative party? Or, you've got people to the left in the Republicans, people to the right in the Democrats. Most of us are there, but we still feel we're not heard. I'm literally on my phone getting ready to change to independent because I'm just tired. I've been both Republican and Democrat. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
And I will jump in and say, as a non-affiliated voter, I think it's a great idea. And also, maybe one of you could address that, because that's a little bit, it's a great question, one that we all have, but it's a little bit off our topic. Well, we can do it and maybe you can turn it around into how we can help with that, as we work with you.
At the federal level, it's always a math problem. It's a numbers game, for sure. You can see the slim majority, so people are pretty much set in their ways. We had, again, this is the Speaker of the House that where we are sitting today, that it looks like we can't govern. But I want to remind everybody that 96% of the Republican conference wanted Speaker McCarthy. There was only 8, and they teamed up with 208 Democrats to unelect him to stop where we are today. Now, I could blame whoever. The point is, that's what people are tired of, is the blame game. Now, how do we get out of it? You saw now the leader, Steve Scalise, the same thing, where he comes to the floor and he cannot get to 218. Well, 218 out of 222 within our conference, or we're going to need some Democrats to come over. And they are in lockstep. Again, on the Problem Solvers Caucus, we all got together and we said, is anybody willing to come up with a different solution about how we can work together? Well, there's negotiations that happen there. If they're going to give up any side of that to come with the Republicans to elect another speaker, they want something for it. That's the surprise, is that I don't get surprised or shocked, but you would say they want something for that. They're going to want more power in other parts of the government in order to do that. At this moment, that is not where they are. They are going to stay in lockstep, that all 212 of them are not going to vote for anybody else except there's Hakeem Jeffries. Well, now you got the Republicans who are in the majority who are going to say, we're not voting for a minority speaker in the majority. So that's the ugliness of it, and we have to find coalitions. So I work every single day. As a matter of fact, on the way home last night, I had a conversation with Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez from the state of Washington, who's a Democrat, and we talked this through. We're having dinner on Monday. We're trying to coalesce around what is it that we need to do to get off this space. We can't sit here for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But at this point, we are 33 days from shutting down the government again. Until we get that. Remember, Speaker McCarthy brought to the floor a continuing resolution that said we will fund the government. We needed bipartisanship on that, and it passed by over 300 members of Congress to keep the government open. That's the ultimate goal. We cannot afford this government to shut down, and I'll do everything I can to elect the next speaker to not shut this government down. So just know, I'm working with my colleagues across the aisle and with other coalitions of moderate Republicans in New York, in California, and in Oregon, to get that done, because I think that's where people are expecting us to do. You can't get your work done without us. I can't help the state level. The state level can't help the local level when there's funding that's going to get held up. So I'm doing everything I can to make sure that ball keeps moving down the field.
Thank you. Thanks. So, and we are probably going to go about 5 minutes long. We started a little bit late, and we can still get the turnaround for our business meeting to start at 11:30. So I know we had another hand up here. Okay, thank you, Nolan. You've already got the mic.
Leo Groner, West Lynn. One of the main themes of this conference has been homelessness, and the consensus seems to be that mental health is a major issue behind homelessness. My partner is a mental health provider. She is in the process of essentially quitting any services through Medicaid because of her frustration with the system. She's spending an hour or 2 hours on hold on the phone or getting contradictory emails from different parts of Medicaid. She's totally frustrated and is giving up on it. So I'm beginning to see the federal government's controls, for example, in Medicaid, as being an obstacle to solving our very local problems. Any conclusions?
It's the federal hour.
Yeah.
Well, it's important because that's exactly what I was talking about as mayor. You never really could recognize or realize how important the decisions we make at the federal level are going to affect us on our everyday lives. And homelessness has been a focus of mine as we've moved through this Congress. I dropped a couple of bills, but one particular is the Direct to Care Act. Specifically addressing the homelessness crisis, because we are experiencing that at a higher rate than some other states are. And we can, again, place blame on policies. We can place blame on our Measure 110 and drug addiction, but they are all interrelated, and we have to do something. We now know that the housing crisis, or the lack of housing, sometimes can be a part of that issue, but that's the one issue we've ever really kind of talked about. And then in silos, we talk about mental health, and then in another silo, we talk about drug addiction, and really they're all so interrelated that we have to start paying attention to what that means coming from the federal level. So I wanted to make sure that we're addressing people on the streets of where they are. Now, that doesn't always seem like a Republican issue, but I can tell you this, Republican mayors or local officials don't care. They just want to get the problem fixed for their community members, because now it is using your budget, almost probably your entire budget, you're addressing a lot of the social services that was always once held by either the county or the state level. And you're looking to them and they're thinking, well, their budget's going to probably, well, come up short because of how we direct those services. And CMS is not helping at the federal level because they continue to cut the reimbursements for our providers, and now we have a lack of providers. We're in the mental health my husband, we have mental health clinics throughout the state of Oregon, and we cannot find providers, and we cannot get the reimbursements in order to treat these patients. And we're seeing it over and over again, and now it's not just seniors or military or veterans. We're seeing younger and younger population who need these services, and they cannot get the reimbursements, and people are leaving the profession, and it's a constant loop. So I can tell you this, we work with them I work with the Doctors Caucus. There's a Mayor's Caucus. I want you all to know that I sit with former mayors who are now members of Congress for these issues about how it directly affects. We're working on it every single day. I'm on education and workforce that deals with healthcare, and we're doing our best to get the direct care and the direct access here in the state of Oregon to address those issues.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Patty, was that our last question? Okay, one more.
Mrs. Mayor Cross, City of Toledo. With the success of the ARPA program and how well it worked with our cities, and we have shown to be extremely accountable with those dollars, I want to ask, is there any hope at the state and or the federal level that we can get more programs like that doesn't put us into competing with other communities that may or may not have those resources to do those competitive grants that we all keep running into, but where those direct dollars have allowed us to do things that have been needed in our communities but unable to do previously?
Thank you, Mayor. I think that's one of the best suggestions you've brought up in your time as mayor, getting money direct from the state to local government. I've always, sitting in your seat, a little chagrined at how the state always wants to take their own haircut off the federal money before they pass it. But yes, I would hope, Mayor, that we can find a way to build confidence with the legislative members, that city's administration can actually do good things with money direct and take off some of the as I call, strings attached to the funds, you know, whether it be to meet the homelessness, unhoused, education, all sorts of things, where we have a tendency to be too prescriptive as to what to do with those funds. So I'm an advocate. I've just got 89 other members to convince.
When I was mayor, served on the city council, which has been 400 years ago, we had federal revenue sharing, and that's what federal revenue sharing did. And we did some great things in my community and other communities in the state of Oregon, being able to use those. So I think it's a great concept. I think the state ought to consider ways to be able to do that and not attach the strings and tell you how to do it locally. I think on an individual basis, some of the programs we've done, we're getting closer to that, but I agree with you. We ought to find a way to provide support for communities to do the things you need to do in your community without us telling you how to do it.
And could we please continue that applause for all three? Thank you. So good practical advice: communicate, come with our solutions, and know why, the pros and cons, no surprises, focus on our relationships. I love this, follow up, because I call that pestering at the mayor's level, but now I know it's permissible at the state and federal level. Thank you all for your involvement, your engagement, and a reminder, we'll start our business meeting at 11:30. If you have not yet checked in to confirm your city's voting delegate, please visit the table outside the lobby. LOC staff will be happy to assist you with that. The voting cards need to be picked up within a few minutes. So thank you all. Thank you. And we will reconvene in our business meeting at 11:30.